Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of My Golden Life. I'm your host, Lisa Neller, and I have a special guest today, and we are going to talk about creating and making art in the second half of life. And my guest today is Irene Ruby. She's from the UK, which is so fun for me. I love talking to people from all over the world. And Irene has a special gift in art, and she wants to share it with the world. So what I'm going to do is let her introduce herself and tell us her story. Irene, welcome to My Golden Life. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate you having me here, and I really look forward to talking to you about all things creative and art and how to get started with art, and that it's never too late to get started. And I'm sure we have lots to talk about. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, yes, it's my pleasure. So let's just start with your story. Tell us, give us a little background on you and how you got to where you are. We will talk about makings
Mhm.
and musings. So we'll just go from where you were to where you are now, and then we'll go, yeah, we'll take it from there.
Good, fantastic. Well, I was not always a full-time artist. I studied law originally and I moved to the UK. I'm from the Netherlands originally. I moved to the UK about 15 years ago, started working here in law and in insurance, and I had a really corporate career and background. And then after doing that for years, I started to realize that that was not what I wanted. And I quit my job and became a full-time artist and started to teach lots of art classes. And one of the main sort of points in my life that triggered that decision, that sort of made me realize that I had to make some changes in my life, was the passing of my grandmother. She and I were very close, and she lived to a very old age. She was almost 100 when she passed away, and I was there with her in that moment. And yeah, she was an artist, so she had her house full of paintings, and there was like sculptures and paintings and everything. Just she celebrated her own art so much, and it was everywhere in the house and in her life and in the garden. And when she passed, I was the only one in the family who wanted to take her art materials because I couldn't bear to throw them away, so I took them with me here to the UK. And one afternoon they were sort of looking at me, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to paint something with these materials. And I started doing this on my kitchen table, and I was really, very upset and sad and grieving. And I started to paint with these materials, and my grandma felt really close to me. It was like she was there sort of with me during that painting process. And I realized that this was something that I wanted to do more and help other people to feel connected to, their own difficult moments in life and go through that painting by painting. And yeah, that's sort of how the first seeds of Makings and Musings were planted. And then a few years later, I saved up some money, quit my job, started my own business, started teaching art classes, and yeah, that's now 7 years ago. So that's yeah, how
I
it got
love
started.
that. I love that you went from law
Mm.
and insurance to art.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's got two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of work life and things that I'm doing. And yeah, it's a big change in my life as well as in my career.
You know, I was thinking as you were talking, I was reminded about one day I was sitting in my cabin. We have this cabin in the woods,
Mhm.
and there's this trout. It's like, I don't know how else to put it, but it's kind of like a just a little statue of a trout, 3D, and I had some watercolor. So I thought, you know what? I'm gonna I'm gonna paint this trout.
Hmm.
And I have to say, I did a really good job.
Hmm.
And I still have that painting. I keep it in my office. I'm going to send you a picture of it sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah. And I thought, you know what? There's probably some hidden talent in me.
Mhm.
And I don't paint. I don't draw. typically. That's not my go-to, but I know that that's in me, and I know I have a
Mm,
lot of creativity.
mm,
So tell me how you help people get creative. Like, how do
mm,
you introduce them to art? What do you do
mm,
to inspire people?
mm. Well, first of all, I believe that all of us, that every single person is creative, because I believe that creativity is what makes us human. That is what makes us, tell stories and dance and cook and decorate things, decorate our house, our dress sense, our way of like the way we express ourselves. I think all of that is creativity. So first of all, when people say to me, "Oh, I'm not creative," what they mean is I don't have any drawing skills, or I have not practiced this skill much. And those two things are very different things. I think everyone has a creative spark and everyone is creative. Like, we are human beings. This is what we are and what we do and the way we are on this world. So yeah, first of all, that's a really strong sort of inner belief that I have. So yeah, when people say I cannot draw, like as soon as you can hold a pencil, you can draw and you can make marks. And it's a process of just daring a little bit. And I really teach people to enjoy the process of creating something. It's not about the final outcome, about making that perfect painting. It's about being in the moment and treating art almost like a way of mindfulness, like a type of meditation. When you're in that creative flow and you really lean into that process, it's so calming and so relaxing, and it doesn't matter if your painting is going to be perfect or not. So yeah, first of all, that's two really important things. The fact that everyone is creative, everyone can learn to draw and paint, and focus on the journey, not on the outcome.
Yeah, and what came to my mind was doodling.
Mm,
Have you ever had people just doodle like just like I love what you said, like take pen
mm,
to paper or pencil to paper and just, go from one point
mm.
on the paper to another and start
Yeah,
there. And then
absolutely.
yeah, and you can create something.
Mm.
So, how has art brought meaning and depth to your life?
Well, I think that story that I shared before about my grandmother, that was a life-changing moment for me. And from that moment, I started to create more. And I wasn't very good in the beginning. I had to learn so much. And yeah, by going through that process and learning and connecting with that art and connecting through that process and not focusing too much on the outcome, you learn and you grow. And that's what happened with me. And I built confidence. And yeah, it has completely changed my life, of course. And that story, what you just said about the doodling, because I know some people watching this on video, I was actually going to show you this picture. So making sure it's in front of the camera.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
these are two pictures that I made. This little drawing is something that I did only like a few weeks ago. When I was feeling very anxious, I just took a pen and I just filled the paper. And it's not always about create, because I do a lot of realistic portraits and animals and like, bigger scale paintings. But sometimes it is just about making marks on the paper. And like, honestly, anyone can do that because you just fill the paper with little scribbles. You don't need to have really special skills or talent to do this. As long as you have a pen and a paper, you can do something like this. So, yeah, when you said doodling, yeah, it was really interesting because I had this ready already to show you.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
And I like so both pages, right? Or did you are both of those doodling, those two pages, or was it more the
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
So I love the word doodling. I know a
Yeah.
lot of artists are a bit allergic to doodling because it's maybe not quite as serious as like art making or illustrating or painting. The word doodling has a lightness to it, and I really like that. I think we should embrace it. And when people are scared of drawing, they might not be scared of doodling. So I think it's a word that we should embrace and that we should joyfully use. But yeah, not all artists agree on this, so that's quite an interesting thing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Hmm.
But everybody has an opinion, so we'll just
Yeah,
let them have their opinions, right?
it's okay to disagree on these things. Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so why do you believe it's never too late to start learning or creating art? Because as you know, this podcast is geared towards women in the second half of life.
Hmm.
And you and I talked, before this
Hmm.
interview, we talked about creativity and the importance of creativity.
Mhm,
So can you talk about that a little bit?
mhm. Of course, absolutely. I teach like 99% of the people I teach are over 50. Sometimes, like once in a while, there's a younger person joining in, but almost everyone is a bit later in life. And I think there's so much value that comes with life experience that you can bring into your art and that you can show. Because, when you're a bit older, I'm in my 40s, so I'm a little bit younger than the people I teach. But also, I've had a bit of life experience. But the older you get, the more you go through and the more you learn and the more stories we have to share. And also, I don't know if I can say this, but the older we get, I noticed this in myself already, and I definitely noticed this in my grandmother, that the older we get, the less we care about other people's opinions. I don't know if this is something that you notice in the people around you. And I think that is especially for women, such an important thing to let go of other people's opinions and just create what we want to create and gives us joy. And yeah, I know that can be a little bit scary sometimes, but when you start, it's really hard to stop, because when you start creating things that bring you joy and that feel good and you share your own stories, oh, that is so powerful. That's really something really wonderful.
Well, so that leads me to, can you share some examples of how life experiences can shape artistic journeys?
Mm.
It seems like those two things are related.
They're very aligned with each other, because I think of course, youth is wonderful and, very much celebrated in our culture. But actually, when you want to share the things that really matter in life and the things that are really important to the core of your being, they are those are things that come with experience. And those are the pieces of art that you look at that actually touch other people as well. So I was thinking before we made this call about artists that I really admire, and there's actually loads of people who started making art later in life. Have you heard of Grandma Moses?
Yeah, I think
So,
I have. Yeah.
so Grandma Moses is this wonderful American artist. Her real name was Anna, but she goes by Grandma Moses. She's not alive anymore. But she started painting in her 70s. And she started painting because she had arthrosis and she couldn't do any embroidery and cross stitching anymore that she used to love. So she switched to painting, and her paintings are like, they go for millions now. And she started later in life. And there's so many people who start that journey when they're a bit older. Um, yeah, it's
Oh, I
never
love
never
that.
too
I
late
love
to
that.
start.
Yeah.
She's one of my big inspirations. I love her paintings as well because they're a little bit quirky. Like, she paints these beautiful like countryside scenes from around the places where she lived. But there's a lot of they're quite endearing. Like when you look at these paints, oh, they're just wonderful. Yeah. I'll
I'm
share
gonna
a
look
link.
her
Maybe we
up.
can put it in the notes somewhere. I don't know if you
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
can.
I'm gonna look her up and look
Mm,
at her work. Um, oh, I lost my train of thought there for a
mm.
second.
That's
I was
absolutely
just
fine.
gonna say that, I mean, I'm 66
Mm,
and I'm creating a ton of stuff.
mm,
As you probably know,
mm,
just in creating, I've created my own website.
mhm,
I've created my own podcast.
mhm.
There's so much that I'm doing right now
Yeah.
um, that feels creative to me.
Mm,
And and so I do want to encourage women out there
mm,
and men to
mm,
explore artistic expression.
mm,
It really is, according to Angeles Arrien, who is a cultural anthropologist, and we talked about this, that she wrote The Second Half of Life, and I don't have the book in front of me, but
mm,
she said like creativity is an important thing to be experiencing and
mm,
expressing in the later
mm,
part of life. So,
mm.
well, let's talk about makings and musings. Tell me about that.
Yes. So I started my own business, Makings and Musings, when I quit my job. And with Makings and Musings, I host an online community where I teach people to draw and paint and to make drawing and painting part of their daily habits of their daily life. So I create a lot of like easy exercises. We have weekly Zoom calls where people join in and we create together. We paint and we draw together and we fill our sketchbooks. And yeah, it's very international. So I have people join in from all over the world, a lot of people from the States. but also some people from Germany, France, the UK. I've had people join in from Greenland, from India. So really wonderful. The only part that is a bit hard for me is Australia because of the time difference. But yeah, the States works really well because when I do my classes, it's for me it's evening, but then people join in their mornings or lunchtime. So it's a really lovely way of sort of connecting with people all over the world. Yeah, and with Makings and Musings, I teach all these courses and classes, and it is just it's wonderful. But and for me, it allows me to teach exactly what I want to teach.
Yeah.
I work as an illustrator as well, and I illustrate children's books, and I do art on
Oh,
commissions and things like that. But when you do a book, especially when someone else has written it, you visualize someone else's vision. And with Makings and Musings, I can make it entirely the way that I want it to be. And that's yeah, I'm very proud of it and really excited and happy and grateful that I have this community of people who want to create with me every week.
that's so exciting. And
Mhm.
we're gonna get to where people can find you in just a minute, but
Mhm.
I do have a story to share. I started taking yoga in my 40s. I was
Mhm.
41 when I started taking yoga classes, and I had this yoga teacher. Her name is Jordan Kirk.
Mhm.
And she had been already in the industry, in the yoga teaching industry for years, 20 years probably. But she taught again with her husband for another probably 10, 15 years. So
Mhm.
over 30 years of experience. And she was an international teacher and all this. She was amazing to me. And then one day she stopped teaching yoga
Ah.
and she went into art.
Mhm.
Now, this was in her 50s.
Mhm.
She had a child in her late 40s, and then she started to become an artist. And I was shocked. First of
Mhm.
all, I loved her as my teacher and I didn't want her to quit. But she had this other calling. And
Mhm.
she started painting, and oh my gosh, she's winning awards. She's just an amazing artist. And I said, Jordan, I didn't even know you liked art. You didn't really
Mhm.
talk about it in your yoga classes or anything. And she goes, oh yeah, I majored in art in
Mhm.
college. And anyway, I'm telling that story to inspire people. Like
Mhm.
if you feel this calling
Mhm.
to do it or even explore it, then I
Mhm.
really encourage you.
Mhm.
And before you tell us where we can find you, is there anything else you want to add about exploration of
Well,
art?
actually, a new study came out in the UK only last month, and it's really interesting because it tells us that making art has a bigger impact on our well-being, on our mental health, on our sense of like well-being and how happy we are within ourselves. And it has a bigger impact on those things than even our employment and our job has. And I think it's such an interesting study because we in our society we put so much emphasis on what our careers are and what our job is and what our job title is, and we sort of link that so strongly to our identity, right? Like, I am a doctor, I am a taxi driver, I am like, we really link our job with our identity. And actually, if we look at what makes you feel good and what is good for you, what is, what is it that makes you happy and makes you fulfilled in life, art and crafts have such a big part of that. And that study proved that. And I think, yeah, I think it's so interesting. And also because a lot of the people who join my classes, they are sort of at the age where they might be thinking of retiring, which is a very scary thing if your identity is so closely linked to your job. Like, what are you going to do after? Are you still having that sense of self-worth if you stop working? And, how do you contribute to society? All these thoughts go through people's minds. Um, I don't think, those are the right thoughts, but this is naturally what happens. And then by creating art, people find a place where they can express themselves, they learn something. It's wonderful to be new at something. It's a wonderful space to be somewhere where you can learn and explore and just open yourself up, to new experiences and trying out new things, and then slowly getting better and seeing that improvement. When you have a sketchbook and you see it from the beginning to the end, you go through the pages, it's like a journal of your life. And um, yeah, so that study came out at the perfect moment for me because my classes are busier than ever. And yes, this is the right thing to do. So it is, yeah, it's just wonderful. Um,
Oh,
so
I
that was
love
something I
that. And
wanted
I'm
to add.
hoping that I don't know if you can share that study with me.
Mhm.
Um, I was just talking to my son recently. He is his daytime job is in IT,
Mhm,
but he's really a sketch comedy and digital film artist and an
mhm,
editor. He has this whole creative side to him that he would prefer to be doing that full time.
mhm,
And right now that's not paying the bills.
mm,
So he's always looking like for that balance between
mm,
how much time can I actually and energy can I
mm,
put into my art, um, and still, still feel sane or whatever
mm,
with the whole working full-time thing. But
mm,
it's nice to have an artist in the family, and his girlfriend is like you. She's more of an illustrator, a drawer,
mhm,
a painter, she's really
mm,
talented. And so it's fun.
mm,
Okay, so if you can share that with me,
mhm,
let
of
me know
course.
and I can put that in the show notes. And then tell us where people can find you.
Yeah, so my business name is Makings and Musings. So if you search for that anywhere on the internet, on YouTube, I have my own podcast as well, where I speak to lots of creatives, like painters and drawers, illustrators. So yeah, Makings and Musings on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere, all over the internet, you can find me as Makings and Musings.
And
And
that's
that's my
unique,
website as
right?
well,
Nobody else has that.
makingsandmusings.com. No. So you know, how musing is like you have a muse, right, in art. So the muse is like something that inspires you. But also musing is when your mind sort of wanders and you have all these ideas sort of, floating around in there. Where you go for a walk and you sort of let your mind wander. That's musing. And then making things. So that's the practical side, using your hands, creating things, being more like physically sort of present, doing things. So yeah, it's the two sides of that, the mindfulness and the creativity, the creating that comes together in Makings and Musings. That's why I chose that name.
I love it. I love it,
Mm.
Irene. Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story and
Mm,
encouraging us to delve into our
mm,
creativity, particularly in the second half of life. And of course, you don't have to wait if you're younger than 50. But
You're
by all
also very
means,
welcome.
go to
Mm,
Makings and Musings.
mm,
But I'm really grateful that you took the time to be here with us. And I hope that those of you who are listening feel inspired to take a pencil to paper and learn
mm,
how to doodle and draw and
mm,
create and just express yourself through art. And
mm.
yeah, thanks, Irene.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really love talking to you. And absolutely, I couldn't agree with that more. Just get started with something small. It doesn't have to be a huge, 16th chapel. It's something small. And yeah, it's just wonderful. And then from there, you'll see it start flowing. So thank you so much for
I,
having me, Lisa. I really love talking to you.
Oh yeah, and I love that starting small thing with everything, whether
Mm,
you're changing your diet or,
mm,
starting a business or whatever. Start
mm,
small and then it doesn't feel
mm,
overwhelming. It's much more fun that way. So,
mm.
all right, everyone, thank you for joining me here at My Golden Life. We'll see you next time. Have a fabulous day.